and I want to make these videos, and like gender will change midway. Like I sort of had a clear concept, and Christopher was like, yeah, and what are the fantasies? Like, what are your fantasies? And I was like, oh.
My guests today are Vivek, Shraya, and Christopher Sherman, the artists behind the new video series, Sex is Sex.
Sex is sex. Sex is sex. Sex is sex.
Sex is sex.
It's so nice to have both of you here. Let's talk about Sex is Sex, the project that the two of you have collaborated on. It's this really thought-provoking and provocative video series. Let's just maybe start things off by talking about what Sex is Sex is.
It's an installation where we kind of explored the different ideas of sex, and I really wanted to work with Vivek because it was 6 different short videos that explore desire, sex, sexuality in the way that both of us make art together, using that sort of language to make some cool video installations.
Let's just talk about sort of the origin story of Sex is Sex and how the two of you came together to make it.
Cool. So, I mean, for me, I had 3 intentions/agendas for this project. First one was I really wanted to collaborate with Christopher. I followed Christopher on Instagram, and I love just how free and just like explicit the art is. Even like the tagline, have a horny day, which I think is like hilarious, but also really provocative. So that was like number 1, is like, what is a project that is going to be worthy of a collaboration with Christopher? I think for me, number 2, as a trans person, I am sort of in between this weird binary where the right kind of sees me as this hideous man and the left sees me as this like mystical, mythical creature. And I'm neither of those. Like, I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, wanting to make art, wanting to hang out with friends. And also, I like to fuck. And I really wanted to make a project that, just really reclaimed my sexuality, especially someone in my 40s, because I think that, when we think of sexuality, so much of that is tied to youth. And I was like, I want to show that actually you can be exploring fantasies even in your 40s. And then the third agenda is like something that I've had throughout my artistic practice, I would say, is bringing more visibility to queer sexuality in general. I think one of the concerns I've had about the LGBTQ rights movement has been the way that we've hinged progress on love. Like it's about who we love, or love is love, or love wins. And those things are true, but it's also about sex. It is also being queer, at least for me, is also about who we fuck. And I think we have done ourselves a disservice by not pushing that forward more. And that's one of the things I love about, Christopher's work, but I do think that there is still a lot of stigma around queer sexuality, and there's still a lot of shame around queer sexuality. Like, a lot of straight people will be like, love is love, pride flags, but they don't want to see lesbians holding hands. They don't want to see 2 gay guys making out. And so for me, like, I've been like always trying to push against this. Even in my books, there's always like a queer sex scene of some kind. And with this project, and even like actually before Bros, my band back in like 2018, 2019 had a song called Love is Not Love. And so this project, Sex is Sex, to me feels like a way to continue bringing visibility to queer sexuality and push back against this idea of love is love.
Yeah, and I think it's very successful at doing that. And you're right. I think that even in the past 10 years, we've gone backwards and sort of regressed in terms of sort of queer sexuality and the way that we talk about it and the way that we just talk about sort of the LGBT movement. And yeah, so I'm just really grateful that the two of you are, not just with this project, but generally doing work that pushes back against that. You in particular.
Exactly.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your contribution to this project and what you wanted to say with it?
The art is always, for me, it's kind of my way of exploring the world. Let's be totally honest, life is so amazing, but it's also really hard some days. And so for me, I always was looking for joy, light, and ways to kind of explore what it's like to be alive in 2020 whatever year it is right now. I'm obsessed with people who are idea makers, thinkers, original kind of concepts. And what Vivek has given to our community and to our country and to all of us is something that we should be super proud of. And so to me, I want to work with bright lights. I want to work with people who are willing to have uncommon confidence in like, we must be brave and make new art. And I am a queer man, and the trans community is our family. It's part of our community. This was a great opportunity for us to learn from each other, to celebrate, and also have a horny day as much as possible.
I mean, it certainly looks like you had some horny days making this film. And it's not just the two of you. Writer Amber Dawn, the great painter Nico Ciccini are both involved in this. So are some other great Canadian queer artists. Do you want to talk about sort of the community element of this project and just in general, like how important community is to you in your sort of creative process?
I mean, for me, I think, thanks for honing in on that, because I think one of the special things about this project is the fact that it is a collaboration not just between us, but other artists. And, you know, a lot of the artists that are involved are people that I've admired. Like Amber Dawn is, like, I would say somebody who has been like a low-key mentor to me. So to have her part of this, and, you know, we've done like a book tour together and like blurbed books for each other and whatnot, but to actually bring her on this side of my practice and have her involved. And, you know, she even said on set, like one of the things she loved was just sort of like the community feeling of the set. Like everyone felt really taken care of. You know, it was the first time for me that we were talking about this yesterday, we worked with an intimacy coordinator. And that to me was also about wanting Borju, and that was also about wanting to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. Like we're all there to have fun and play, but also we're talking about bodies and sex, and all of us have different sort of insecurities and restrictions around that. So I think for me, that community element, especially in a time where, you know, we hear about arts funding and art cuts and stuff, like if I can go home at the end of the night and be like, I spent the day with artists that I admire and we showed love and care towards each other, then that in some ways is just as important as the project. The art is important, but creating space where we can be together and learn from each other and have fun together, yeah, that is everything, I'll say.
And so the series is divided sort of into 6 subsections.
Yeah.
My puppy, my politician, my laundry boy. Do you want to talk about how you sort of decided to theme this and what that discussion was like?
So I'll really credit Christopher because, you know, I tend to come into things with like, you know, I have the intention, this is the spirit of the project, this is the things that, you know, kind of how we start this conversation. I'm like, these are the things I want to challenge, these are the things I want to tackle, you know, and I want to make these videos, and like gender will change midway. Like I sort of had a clear concept, and Christopher was like, yeah, and what are the fantasies? Like, what are your fantasies? And I was like, oh.
I think we sometimes get so hung up on sex, just that word, that big idea, that it's like, we forget that there's a million different spectrums and ideas of what sexuality are. And that's what I've kind of learned is to do this project, Viv had to go inside and be like, what do I desire? What are my desires? What are the desires that I have authentically inside me and not the ones that are being given to me by culture, by advertising, by brands, by corporations? I said, you have to go away and you have to realize inside yourself, what are the desires that are inside you that we need to get out, not the ones that are coming into you?
I think the other thing for me too, is also thinking about humor. Like I just love, like, and again, I think something I love about your art is just how funny it is. Like, and I mean that with so much respect. Like it's sexy, it's hot, but you have these, you know, models in like really funny poses, and it cracks me up. And I think that that's really, like, if art can make you feel multiple things, then I think it's very successful. So for me, in terms of thinking about the fantasies, you know, like one of the first ones that came to me was Jessica Rabbit, you know, and here's like a cartoon from like, was it the 80s or the 90s? And, you know, I remember like seeing that scene where she like straddles the guy at the bar and, you know, his hat comes off and he's like, you know, a bit of a doyoy, but just like, you know, questioning my sexuality, seeing this cartoon. And I was like, we need to do Jessica Rabbit. We also need to have a woman of color play Jessica Rabbit. It was, to me, that was the other mandate, was like, what would be fantasies that would be hot, but also that, you know, people would find joy and humor in as well.
And for the humor part, a lot of people don't know this, and you know this because I've shared it with you, is my greatest inspiration of all the work, of all the art, is the Muppets. Everything is inspired by the Muppets.
I fucking love you.
My glamour, I learned glamour through Miss Piggy. I learned leadership through Kermit the Frog. I learned comedy through Fozzie. Like, it was all this like disaster happening all around you all the time, but it was glorious and it was amazing and it was fun. And they also, whether it's the Muppets or Sesame Street, they taught you the simplest rules that will get you very far. Be kind to each other, help each other out. You know, spend time with each other and learn about each other, wonder about the universe.
rainbow connection.
The rain, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's as good as it's going to get.
I love it. I'll take a Muppet impression.
I mean, I'm sure the creators of the Muppets would be very happy to hear this because I'm sure these were adults who wanted to do exactly this with their show. Yeah, and one of the things I really respect about this project, but both of your work in general, we live in really conservative times in so many different ways, and both of you have really pushed back against that in your work. And I'm just wondering, how you push through the noise that sort of comes because of that, and what makes you sort of motivated to sort of double down and be like, yeah, we're going to make sex is sex. Like, I'm just sort of curious what keeps you going when there is so much pushback, increasingly sort of in mainstream society.
Yeah, I mean, I think connected to what I was saying earlier, I think one of the unfortunate consequences of us not pushing forward with more queer visibility as queer artists and creators is the fact that there is still this shadow around and the secrecy around what we do. And so what that means is the right can then call us pedophiles and groomers, and that starts to have other repercussions. And to me, I mean, making art, making a project where I, as a trans person that is being called a groomer on a daily basis, about my fantasies and my desires feels like the most radical thing I can do in this particular moment. And I mean, without being too grandiose, like, it is also not just for me. It's my hope that like other people, other queer people, other trans people will also find the strength and comfort and pride in our fantasies through a project like this, because I would love to say that those things don't hurt my feelings, that they don't impact me, but they do impact me. They make me feel pretty small and terrible. And so to answer your question, like, it's the art. It's knowing that I have something like this, that I have great collaborators who are going to hold me and carry me forward, and we're going to create something beautiful and funny and challenging together that feels like the thing that allows me to get through the noise.
No, that's great. Yeah. And what about you? Like, I know there's like your Instagram account, for example, keeps getting deleted.
I'm on my
Wild.
6th Instagram account
Wild.
now. I think I shoot a lot for like Interview Magazine and celebs and things like that. And when we're in the dressing room and when we're talking, I always remind everyone, don't believe the hype. Don't even believe the hype that we're making. Like, we're here, we're pretending, we're playing pretend, let's have fun. Everyone else is also playing pretend.
Yeah.
The pandemic taught us tomorrow is not guaranteed to us, and we do not know what tomorrow brings. I have just like doubled down on that knowledge and the faith that I'm in the right place at the right time to make the art that I need to make so I can make sense of this world. At the end of the day, I really do make this work for me. In this situation, it was for us. I really just try and keep the noise to a minimum, and we need to be having fun and living life as it's meant to be lived.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and you touched on this earlier, oddly enough, because it's a question that I had, but we are all in our 40s, which I think we spent, or I felt at least that I spent my whole life being lied to that 40 was old, and now I'm here, and I'm like,
look at
wait,
you.
no, look
You
at the
look
both
amazing.
of you. And this series really was a nice little boost in terms of sort of reminding people that 40s hot, 50s hot, 60s hot. But I'm curious, like, how both of you sort of are negotiating your own sexualities, your queer sexualities in your 40s, and what maybe you wanted to say about that with this series.
I mean, I will say, to just go back to what you were saying really quickly here, like, it was really important to me to have models that weren't just in their 20s or younger. So there are models that are 30, 40, 50, because I really did want to show the fact that, queer sexuality and our discovery of our bodies and ourselves, is hopefully never ending, and that we don't necessarily turn a certain age and then it's all downhill. I think for me personally, it took a while for me to come into my queerness. I was definitely like a late bloomer, and I think that was as a result of a lot of homophobia growing up. And I think, even being trans, like, there is a lot of pressure. When I came out as trans, like in 2016, which is almost 10 years ago, my idea of transness was like, I have transcended. I'm Taylor Swift, I'm not part of this narrative anymore. But what I didn't realize is that actually it was just putting me in a new box. And that was never the intention. The intention wasn't to be like, from man to woman. And the beautiful thing about sex is it's one of the few places where I don't feel pressure to perform a certain kind of gender. As a trans person in the world, as a trans feminine person in the world who has like, you know, a public platform, people expect me to be a certain kind of way and present a certain kind of way. But in the bedroom, those things don't matter. Nobody's expecting me to be more masculine, more feminine. It's really about being in the moment and, you know, seeing where your body takes you, see where the juices take you. And I think that's at the core of this project, is really trying to show that like whatever your gender presentation is, you can have a range of intimacy even with the same individual. You just change your gender presentation and it creates a whole new nuance. It creates a whole new context to play in. So, I mean, I think that's, you know, some of the stuff that I was thinking about while building this out.
Yeah. I have always been very lucky, the privilege of having parents that were very open, and my sister and I would sing "Let's Talk About Sex, Baby" by Salt and Pepper, like all through
Nice.
our early years. It was very liberated in that way. But then in my 30s, I went through a lot of darkness for myself, and I went through a lot of getting lost and not being sure who I was and what I was supposed to be doing here and all that stuff that a lot of us go through. And sexuality was actually one of the ways that helped me get out of the darkness. It was a way to be like, okay, so it's not accepted by, you know, society, or it's not accepted by this, but this is inside me, and this is a truth that's inside me. And I kind of just followed myself into that. Now I'm having great sex at 40, but I also read a lot about as you get older and become more confident in who you are and loving yourself.
Yeah.
There is truth when RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Amen.
Absolutely.
Like, there is truth. You have to like yourself. You have to love yourself. And for me, that makes sex more enjoyable because I'm present, I'm with myself, and I want to explore pleasure with the other person that I'm with.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not talked about specifically with regard to sort of aging and sex, how important it is to get to know yourself and how it gets better and better as we get to know ourselves, which you're not going to know yourself at 25, maybe not even at 35, but I feel like in my 40s, I'm like, oh wow, I'm finally kind of there. Like not fully, but like close enough that I feel comfortable sort of saying that, you know, I feel good in my own body and as myself. So.
I always say with my friends, I feel like I'm finally on the right road.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we should tell people how to watch this wonderful video series. It will be at Buddies and Bad Times for Nuit Blanche.
So Baby's first Nuit Blanche. Have you been in Nuit Blanche before?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've gone to Nuit Blanche, but I've never been an artist in Nuit Blanche.
Oh, sorry. I've never been an artist. I've gone to it. It's
so this
changes.
is like
both your first time.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. So we're doing it as an installation where you go into a space and like 5 of the 6 videos will be projected, and that's from 10 to 7. And then on the outside of the building, they're also showing one of the videos on a loop as well. So I'm really, really excited to queer up the neighborhood even more.
And then after, it will be available online.
Online, that's the hope. I mean, I would love to like pitch it to festivals and stuff too, especially because they can be watched like on their own. But yeah, I would love for galleries, festivals.
I hope that it goes everywhere,
Thank you.
I'm very excited for people to see it, and I'm also so grateful that the two of you stopped by today.
We
Thank you so much
appreciate
for
you.
having us.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure, for sure. 3, 2, 1.